Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Let me ask you something really important. Have you ever reached a point where life just stops working? And it could be due to any one of a number of things. Maybe you're just burned out. Maybe you're stuck in some kind of toxic or self-defeating loop. Maybe it's a job. Maybe it's a relationship. The bottom line is whatever it is, it's not producing good results. No matter what you do, you're still getting the same results over and over again. They are not good. And you realize that this is making your life very hard to handle. And if you get to this point where you're able to say to yourself, I can't keep going on this way, I can't keep doing this, congratulations. Because most people, they notice it for a second and then they put their head back down and hope it goes away. And maybe once you've gotten to this point, you start to open your mind to the possibility that maybe if I took some advice, maybe if I took some kind of direction, maybe if I tried something different, maybe there's a different way to handle this situation, this part of my life that would produce better results. Maybe I could dig myself out of this hole that I'm in, whatever it happens to be. And you start to see that other people have been where you are right now, but they've gotten themselves out. And you don't buy into it completely, but you start to wonder and maybe hope that if I do what they did, if I took direction from them, that maybe I could get out as well and find the kind of results they have. And at this point, you make a decision. Okay, I'm not sure if I really believe this, but I'm going to try this, whatever it is. I'm going to take this guidance. I'm going to take this direction. I'm going to try this different process, whatever it is, and give it my all. And this might be something you have to decide every day because changes are difficult. And at this point, it's time to really take a look in the mirror and see, okay, what am I doing and why am I doing it? All these behavior patterns associated with whatever it is, why am I doing those things? What's causing these bad results in my life? But what's the reasoning behind them? And a lot of times we find ourselves with these really old, entrenched survival techniques or mechanisms or behavior mechanisms that are just kind of automatic. But if we really take this honest look at them, sometimes we're really surprised by what we see, and it's a lot more complex than we thought it might be. And it really helps at this point to discuss this with another person, to go over what you found. And no, I don't believe there's anything magical about it, but there's something about admitting this stuff to another person and asking for their input. What do you see here? Because very often they may give you some input that you didn't really, you weren't able to see yourself. And going through this whole thing, going through this, this whole inventory of how you're behaving and what the situation is really like is really powerful. Because at that point, you can start to take an honest look at, okay, what do I want to change? What things am I doing that are producing bad results that I'm willing to give up? And you may be surprised. Some things you're not willing to give up yet because change is hard. And a lot of these behaviors feel really, really comfortable. And I get it. But there can be these moments where you really have to take an honest look at, okay, when I'm doing these things, what kind of results are they producing in my life and in the lives of others? And you may start to find that there are ones that, even though they're comfortable, even though they're habitual, you're willing to get rid of. And at that point, well, how do I do that? If just stopping something was that easy, well, everybody would do it. So then it's a matter of maybe asking for help once again. How do I change this behavior? What do I replace it with? And seeking the guidance for that and the best approach to doing that. And that's something you're probably going to have to do over and over again. But because habits they're habits. They're really strong. And I can tell you from experience, they take a long time to change and to replace with something else, especially when you're handling a part of life that's been, really difficult for you, because generally, unknowingly and unwittingly, a lot of times we've kind of dug ourselves into those holes. And so we need a lot of help digging ourselves out. And we've started changing our behaviors. We've started to really change our approach to navigating life. Very often we have to look around and see, well, what kind of damage have I caused? You probably caused damage to yourself, but it's possible that you've caused damage to other people, depending upon what the circumstances were. And very often you need to repair that damage as best you can. And a simple, I'm sorry, isn't enough. And sometimes the most powerful amends or repairs we can make is to simply act differently and to navigate life in this different manner, which will be good for us and good for other people. We're not causing harm any longer, but we're also, cleaning up the wreckage of the past. And at this point, you start looking at, okay, every day, how am I doing? I know what my goal is. I know this process I'm trying to follow, or that I am following, in order to produce a better quality of life for myself and those around me. And take an honest assessment. How am I doing today? And this is not to beat yourself up. Any kind of assessment or looking in the mirror is not to beat yourself up. It's to give like an honest look. How are things going? Am I screwing up? Am I doing well? What are my assets? What am I doing really well? And give yourself an attaboy. But if there's things that we're doing that we're not happy with, realize right away, kind of fess up. All right, I'm not happy with how I'm handling things here, and make changes right away. Don't let that go on. Don't let that fester, because that's going to dig you right back into the hole that you were in the first place. And at this point, very often, we start becoming a lot more receptive to the message that's around us all the time. This guidance and direction that we kind of asked for in the beginning, we start to see that it's out there. That we can get feedback from so many different places in the world if we just look and we just open our eyes. And sometimes we just kind of need to ask, like, man, what am I supposed to do here? But you'll be very surprised, how sometimes you get it from a person, and a lot of times it's the same answer you've gotten 100 times before. But we just need to hear it again. And sometimes it comes out of left field. Sometimes it comes from Chat GPT. I kid you not. I got kind of an answer from Chat GPT, which I knew, like, wow, that's really kind of interesting, because I've talked to it long enough that it kind of knows me. And at that point, now we realize we're living life differently. And we become one of those people that we sought out in the beginning that was an example of somebody that overcame that problem, that thing that used to keep us so stuck and seemed so insurmountable and so hopeless. And we look back and we realize, we've gotten out of that jam that we were in, and we've learned a different way to navigate life. But other people see that. And every once in a while, if somebody asks you, you can tell them, well, this is what I did. And you might even be able to help them. And that is a truly fantastic and wonderful thing. So I'd love to hear if you've had experiences like that, or if this made any difference. Did this make things clearer? Because that's the kind of thing I like to do on this channel, is not gloss over the surface, but take a look a little deeper and see what's really going on, examine the truth, and then alter our actions based upon what we find the truth to be. And it'd be a lifelong process. You know what I mean? But the results, they're worth it.